I had managed the Scorpions, Bon Jovi, Skid Row, Kiss. I had been dragged through the deepest shit with all kinds of mentally ill people. But I've never been through what Motley Crue put me through.
Okay, hi everybody. It's the Dystopian Dance Party podcast, and let's introduce ourselves this time. We'd gone so long without recording that we forgot how to do a podcast last time. So,
well, kind of, because we never really ever introduced
we did
ourselves.
Sometimes, but I'm Zach, and this is Callie.
Oh, my bad. I'm Callie. I was distracted that quickly. I'm sorry.
So yeah, we're doing two unusual things. We are recording a podcast 2 consecutive weeks in a row, and we are recording a podcast that's going to be less than an hour long. And so those are two firsts for us, I think, and it's probably the first and last time that we'll ever do this. But obviously, last time we recorded, we talked about the Motley Crue autobiography, The Dirt, for Dystopian Book Club. The Dirt is the first Dystopian Book Club selection to be made into a movie, although I'm still holding out hope for the Crazy from the Heat movie, of course, and a Rick James movie, honestly. Kiss can fuck off, but there's a few that I'd like to see. But for now, The Dirt is all we have. So knowing that there was a movie coming out, and of course we timed the podcast to come out the same day as the movie, we kind of had to talk about the movie a little bit. If anybody follows us on Twitter, and I know that at least
one.
There's at least one or two people both follow us on Twitter and listen to the podcast. I know this for a fact. We did live tweet the movie for the first time. That was kind of fun. But we're also going to talk about it here because just because. So I guess let's just start. What did you think of what did you think of The Dirt, the movie on Netflix?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna say that I liked it. There's a caveat to that though. Like it was pretty much what I expected, so that's why I liked it. Because it was, first of all, I like stupid, dumb rock bios. Like biopics are one of the genres of movies that I return to probably the most. Because I don't watch good movies. Like I will literally put Graffiti Bridge in, like for a while it was like once a week. And just watch it, like, for recreation. So, like, that's where I'm coming from in my movie watching. I'm not, like, a film buff. I'll just put in stupid movies all the time just to watch and enjoy them. I loved the David Cassidy biopic. So
that was on VH1, right?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Because this movie...
At the end, he makes a cameo in it.
None of the members of Motley Crue made cameos in this. That was...
Tommy Lee did. Kinda.
That's right, in the credits. Yeah. But there is no scene where, like there is... There's no Mike Myers in Bohemian Rhapsody scene, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
There's no distracting cameo where it's like, isn't that Mike Myers with like a rubber nose on? Like,
Right, yeah.
yeah, but I was gonna say the movie reminded me of like an R-rated version of the Def Leppard biopic from VH1. Do you remember that?
I don't, but when you said that, I want to watch it now because it sounds like it's right.
You definitely should. Yeah, it opens with who's their what's their drummer's name again? I keep thinking Joe Elliott, and that's their singer.
I don't know any of their names.
And Phil Collins is their guitarist, so I'm striking out 100%. But
anyway. Yeah, like I only remember like the names that sound like somebody else's name.
Exactly.
Because I'm like, oh no, Phil Collins, not Phil Collins.
Right, not Phil Collins. Exactly. But anyway, it opens with the car accident that claimed their drummer's arm. So
Rick Allen.
I
knew that.
I knew that
Rick.
Too. Yeah. Anyway, it reminded me of that. It very much feels like in a way that I think is appropriate because so much about the Dirt in general is kind of like we talked about in our podcast. It's this relic of the mid 2000s hair metal nostalgia moment. It feels like this movie feels like it somehow escaped from an alternate timeline where VH1 is a pay cable show and they can show boobs and like vaginal secretion spraying across the room and stuff like that. It very much was like an R-rated VH1 movie.
That part was fucking dope. That
which is to say that I enjoyed it. Like this is a positive review, by the way.
More movies should start with a woman getting eaten out and squirting on everyone.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, I have to, I'm in the same exact boat as you were. My expectations for the Dirt were rock bottom. I was expecting like a dumb, trashy, I hoped that it would be entertaining. And and it was entertaining. I think
I've watched it twice so far. Honestly, like I watched it on Friday, and I'll say this: there are some parts that were hard to watch. Like all the parts where Nikki was younger were like, ugh, can we get out of here?
Right.
But
and it is kind of interesting because I noticed when I was thinking back, he's the only one of the members where we get to see his childhood. Like there's a weird point of view thing.
I think that he had the most to do with the film, honestly. I don't, and that's why it's like clearly swayed towards him.
Right.
There's way more about Nikki than there is about anyone else, which, well, I'll speak more on that later.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the movie really, like, the dramatic moments did not land as well as the comedy moments, and the comedy moments were definitely like guilty pleasure. It felt, and
the comedy moments didn't land as well as I think they could have, because I feel like the book probably because of who was writing it.
Yeah.
Was more self-deprecating.
Right.
Like I remember there were like 2 chapters, one where Nikki was talking about an interview they did, and then the next chapter after that was a transcript of the interview.
Yeah, exactly.
It made it funny. And that was a really self-deprecating part of the book, and that was kind of lost on the movie. It was more kind of like glorifying themselves, which is exactly what I expected. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be as hard-edged, I guess, as the book was.
Right.
So
it was very much like the behind, again, VH1 mid-2000s. It was very much the behind the music formula of like, okay, this exciting band gets together, they go to the top, bad things happen, they hit rock bottom, and then they have like a triumphant return. It was like the most cliche, which, I mean, that is kind of Motley Crue's narrative, I guess.
It's not, though. It's their narrative if you're Nikki Sixx and you're narrating it.
Right.
But if you read the book, it's really like they were at rock bottom the whole time.
Yeah. And
did they ever leave rock bottom?
I mean, they did kind of like they were
got
not
more
on
money, but they were still. It was like they were at rock bottom in different ways throughout the entire book.
Yeah, and there's less of an arc, because like the thing about the book is you see them get clean and then fuck up and get clean and then fuck up, and now one of the other ones is fucking up. Now it's another one. Like it doesn't have that neat, dramatic arc where in the movie they kind of smoothed it out so it's like all the bad stuff happened at the same time, which it sort of did in real life.
Did, and then
around like Theater of Pain.
It did again, and then it did again.
Exactly.
Right, yeah. And even at the end of The Dirt, they were beefing. Like, they were all beefing. They all fucking hated each other at the end of The Dirt, because Tommy had to go make his fucking rap rock new metal album. Yeah. And Vince had just punched Tommy. Yeah,
exactly. So this is a much more, like, cleaned up Hollywood version of it. I thought some of the ways that they glorified the band I thought were funny. Like the very beginning starts with somebody, I think I didn't know the actors at that point in the movie, but I think it's Nicky doing a voiceover, his character, where he's talking about the 80s and like how much they sucked and how Motley Crue was like a reaction to that. And I was like, Motley Crue was like a symbol of the 80s. I mean, they weren't Nancy Reagan. Like, I get that. I get how they were definitely, a reaction to that kind of like moral majority, Parents Music Resource Center kind of bullshit. But I mean, if you're talking about the 80s in terms of like excess and, the kind of cultural sides of the 80s, I mean, sexism, like crazy. So much of that movie honestly reminded me of an 80s teen comedy, like Porky's. So I thought that was I thought that was kind of wishful thinking that they were turning Motley Crue into something, I think a little more counterculture than they maybe actually were. Because there's also a reason why they got so huge in the 80s, because they were of their time. Right.
Well, even like, because I have been watching interviews that Nicky was, from what I could tell, the only one doing the press for this movie too, which is why I know like it was his fucking movie. Right. Yeah. But like even the way that he was talking about, like, there was one interview I watched that I had to just turn off because it was annoying me, because he was talking about like saying something about how like rock music sticks with you more than like hip hop and this and this and this. And I'm like, whatever, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, maybe clearly fucking you racist. Personally, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of get what he was saying, because he was saying like rock music keeps sticking around, but like, I mean rock music is really literally older than hip. Like, give hip hop 30 more years, and right?
Then we can have
and
this
also
conversation.
Like, it's not really rock so much as like it is blues, which then like comes out in every form of music. Like it's older forms of music that have like influenced all these types of music, including rock and hip hop. That's what sticks. It doesn't matter. Like, fucking girls isn't a fucking
it's not like, timeless unless you're in a strip club.
Right. I mean, it's timeless to me because that's my shit. I love that song. Like, I'm not saying that I don't love girls. I'm just saying that it hasn't enhanced my life.
Right. And I think there's, it's a guilty pleasure. I'm not going to sit here and say this movie was a good idea to make in 2019. Yeah. I totally understand, the critics do not like this movie. And they are completely justified. Like, if I was getting, if I was professionally reviewing this movie, I could not in good conscience give it above like a C. It's just, it's just like amateurishly made. It's stupid. It's, the way that women are portrayed is risible. I mean, there's any number of like complaints that I think can legitimately be levied against it. And I definitely think that it's not, it is a movie that really clashes with the kind of prevailing cultural winds. Like, this is not a time where people are really eager to look back and think about how amazing 80s rock stars were, right? Running around naked and exploiting women. And I mean, there's like shit in the book that we obviously talked about the infamous rape scene, which surprise is not in the Dirt, the movie. Right. There's another scene that I completely forgot to talk about that has also become kind of infamous, where they're sticking the phone up the girl's vagina, and her friend calls, and they make her like talk to her friend while the phone is still inserted in her body. That doesn't show the band in a great light. Also, believe it or not in the book.
The main thing about that, though, is like if it's consensual, it's funny.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean,
what I'm worried about is there's so much bacteria on that phone.
Yeah. I really hope she got it checked out. Yeah, I mean, and that's a part of it. Like we've talked about this. I think we both have kind of complicated feelings about that whole side of the rock star thing, because it's also like there, yes, this is an awkward movie to be made during the Me Too era, but it's also like there aren't, accusations against the members of Motley Crue. Like for all we know, other than, again, the scene with Tommy and Nikki in the closet, which was horrifying. But for all we know, a lot of these girls who are now, grannies, didn't have a problem with it. Were participating of their own free will. And, like it's not really our responsibility to be upset on their behalf. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's also other stuff in the book that's not even about the gender stuff. Like another thing we totally forgot to talk about was when Tommy and Nikki went on a rampage in Japan and like fucking brained a guy, a random innocent bystander.
I'm honestly surprised that didn't make the film.
Yeah.
Because they talked about it. It's not like something that's under wraps. Like it
right.
was in the dirt. There are a million videos you can find because like I said, there's like a fucking library of Motley Crue footage on YouTube, like more so than it seems like any other like historical figures. There's like there's like a video library of Motley Crue documentaries and interviews.
I know. Just imagine, like, think about all the like knowledge that was lost when the Library of Alexandria was destroyed. But
we have
then,
like 14 VH1 docs.
Yeah, we have the equal amount of knowledge about the band Motley Crue. Like, there are whole civilizations that we don't remember anymore, but Motley Crue will live on forever.
I know, it's so stupid. Like, honestly, that's like I like Motley Crue's music to a point. I already talked about this, where it's like the songs I really like, and I totally like. Again, it's a guilty pleasure. I'm not proud of the fact that I listen to Girls pretty much every time I get in the car now. But however, oh shit, what was I even saying? It's basically like their whole thing of how they got that famous. It defies logic,
right?
Because they're not that good,
right?
So it's like, of course we have all of this information about Motley Crue because of course they got famous. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they like somebody out like God really likes Motley Crue.
Yeah,
for some
it's
reason.
the band. It's the band we deserve, not the band that we need.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I totally understand why. It has not been doing well with critics. All of the things that critics are saying, I agree with. The one article that I do want to kind of shout out here is there's an essay by Christopher Weingarten that was published in Slate, where he actually situates the dirt historically in late 90s through mid 2000s. He talks about how in the early 90s with alternative rock there was this reaction against the rock star behavior that Motley Crue kind of embodied. And Eddie, like, there aren't stories about Eddie Vedder sticking a phone up a girl's vagina and making her call her friends. Like, there's this whole like kind of more sensitive, more politically correct culture that happened in alternative rock. And then of course you also had bands like Slater-Kinney and Bikini Kill coming out at that point in time, the Riot Girl movement. And so there was this kind of like there rock stardom and rock star behavior, and that like excessive caveman stuff was on the wane. And then it came back in the late 90s. And so Weingarten, he talks about Bill Clinton being celebrated as the first rock and roll president. right around
Why
the
is that?
time
Just
of
because he
the-
got a blowjob?
I think so. And he
played the fucking
he played the
saxophone?
saxophone, behind the
People
music.
people are too fucking lenient with Bill Clinton.
Oh,
he,
yeah.
he isn't he also like a black president according to some people?
Apparently, yeah. Even
So
though
he's a black rock
sponsored
star.
the crime bill, yeah.
Right.
So
Sidebar.
anyway, but so there, so he pulls it into like the Clinton thing and behind the music. He talks about Kid Rock, which was, he said it was, its lyrics were proudly retrograde, looking back fondly to the days of rock excess. The Tommy Lee sex tape, and then Neil Strauss is right in the middle of that.
Hey, wait a minute. Why didn't he mention Vince Neil's sex tape?
I know. It's a major oversight. But it's an interesting article because I remember this. This was kind of when I was getting into, Weingarten talks about Blender magazine, which I did not. Blender was not really. I was mostly reading. This is going to make me sound like a fucking hipster, and I apologize, but I was mostly reading British music magazines, especially Mojo, which this makes me sound like a dad, because my favorite music magazine was always Mojo, which had Genesis on the cover in 2000. But
I remember seeing like blenders.
Yeah,
and stuff.
I remember
I
Blender.
actually remember. I have this memory of, I think you had like some music magazine that you had either gotten from someone to do collages or something. And there was a picture of Tommy Lee in there for the stupid Tommy Lee Goes to College show.
Right.
And I remember that advertisement because he had like 2 different color Converse.
Right.
And that's what I remember about it.
Yeah. And he makes this, convincing case that these magazines had this kind of tone that the Dirt also embodies about, it says, for the next decade, being a rogue pirate wreaking sexual havoc across America was marketed and sold as an integral part of rock mythology itself. VH1's 2001 special on the 100 most shocking moments in rock and roll history punctuates it like this: when he met London party girl Mandy Smith, he knew it was time to settle down. There was only one problem: record scratch sound. She was 14. So this made me think about my own attitudes toward these kinds of books, because this was a formative period for me, and I grew up just like knowing all of this shit about, like nowadays something will come out, like every couple weeks practically there's a new, essay that's like, did you know that Jimmy Page kidnapped a 14-year-old and basically held her, kept her in his house for years because he didn't want to get caught for statutory rape. And it's
right, and I'm like, duh,
yeah,
didn't you read Stairway to
like,
Heaven?
Hello. Yeah.
Did you know that John Bonham shit in a shoe?
Right, exactly. So, and people are shocked. And people
Jimmy
are shocked.
Page's girlfriend's handbag?
Yeah. And every time people are shocked and they're like, wow, I don't know if I could listen to Led Zeppelin anymore. And I'm like,
First of all, all of Led Zeppelin's like good music is stolen,
right.
And then all you have left is fucking Kashmir.
Yeah,
which isn't even enjoyable if you're on shrooms.
Yeah, I mean, so like it's I honestly think that the people who are younger than me and who are finding out these things and who are reacting with moral outrage are probably better people than I am. Like that's probably the right way to feel. But I grew up in this time of like the sleazy, rock anecdote. And while I, absolutely do not condone shoe shitting or statutory rape, like none of I think all of this shit is at best childish, at worst, abusive and criminal. I just don't. I still kind of consume it with a certain amount of irony, and so I think the Dirt is something that I can stomach maybe a little bit easier than some other people can stomach, and I don't know. Maybe that just means I'm a worse human being. I'm not saying that it's like, oh, I'm they're just so easily offended or whatever. It just is what it is. So I guess the takeaway is that Dystopian Book Club is part of this retrograde. Yeah, we're garbage.
I mean, we've positioned ourselves as trash since the beginning, though. So
it's true. Yeah, we have made no bones about
woke trash.
Exactly. The way that I can sleep at night is that I make sure to talk about, I make sure to not whitewash it. Like I will say exactly what shitty things everybody did, and then just continue listening to Ted Nugent. So, that's not a perfect solution.
Well, but I don't think there's a problem. Like, I don't think there's a problem with that, unless it's like, well, I guess Ted Nugent is still around and doing shitty things, but especially for I don't know, people like Gary Glitter. I'm sorry, I'm never gonna stop listening to Gary Glitter. He had some fucking bangers.
Yeah, he shouldn't. Have
I'm
so hard.
I'm also never gonna stop saying he's a pedophile. Like,
right.
It's out there. Like, same with Steely Dan. Like, fucking Donald Fagen beat his wife. Like, come on now. You can't. It's that thing where it's like you have to listen to somebody.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's not a.
But I also think it's important. Like, I preface everything with this person's shit.
Right. Exactly.
And that's kind of what I liked about the book, The Dirt, though, is that they said everything. Like,
oh yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like we said, this movie whitewashed it, so it's still I would encourage you to actually read The Dirt because it's way better, and they're not positioned as heroes. By the end of the book, you're like, they're all fucking idiots.
You hate all of them, yeah.
It literally, the last couple of chapters are Tommy and Vince getting in fisticuffs. So
right.
And that's how the book ends.
I think I would have liked the movie even more if it was. I say even more, like I thought it was some kind of masterpiece, but I think I would have, I would have said, hey, this is a good movie, instead of I enjoyed this, even though I know it was trash. If there had been a much more, if it was a little less celebratory, a little more like Heavy Metal Parking Lot, where it's it's sort of ironic,
or even Decline of Western Civilization, which I know you haven't seen before, but it's that was there was one part where the guitarist from Wasp, this is a famous scene, he's getting progressively drunker while in a pool with his mom.
Right. Oh yeah, I've heard.
I'm
of
sure
that,
you've
right.
heard of it or seen it.
Yeah.
But that was it was poignant because you see his excess, but also his alcoholism. It's it pointed everything out. Well,
right.
It's still kind of showing you the quote unquote fun rock star life, but it's not really. That's what I liked about the book. And also it reminded me of in I think it was the 6th Harry Potter book where Harry Potter's trying to get that that memory from Slughorn so that they can find the Horcrux, and Slughorn doesn't want to admit that he told Voldemort about the Horcruxes, so he alters the memory, and so it's very clearly altered, and then they have to go and get the memory that isn't altered. But the Dirt kind of reminded me of that, especially the scene where Ozzy gives that weird fucking
oh my God,
after special speech about drugs, and I'm Ozzy never said this shit.
I know, yeah. So that they did,
Not
they
at
did
that
the
point,
whole,
anyway.
The whole ant snorting, piss drinking, they did that. It was very true to the book. They recreated the whole thing, but then they give him this super on the nose speech, and he's delivering it in this Ozzy from the Osbournes voice, where he's basically I'm a cautionary tale. It's so, I don't know. It took me right out of the movie. It was come on, we get. I mean, the guy just licked your piss up off of the
right.
How we know that's not he's nuts. This is bad. We don't need him to literally say drugs are bad. It was so stupid.
But it literally reminded me of that part in Harry Potter because Slughorn does he inserts like him like saying like, no, I'll never tell you about this, blah blah blah. It was
Right.
literally like that. And
Yeah.
so the Ozzy part was disappointing. Also, it was disappointing, like horribly
This is
disappointing.
my number
This-
one. Yeah.
This hurt. This
Yeah.
actually hurt. They did David Lee Roth so dirty. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he was silent. Can you imagine David Lee Roth silent?
Right, for any amount of time. Yeah.
Literally.
He like said one thing because they did the thing where the mirror fell on him and he was like, "Oh, it's okay, man." And it's like, there's no way, especially on coke. He was snorting coke at the time, and he
Right.
got like, and he only said like 5 words. Yeah, there's no way. It was cubic zirconia Dave. That was not diamond Dave.
It was so weird too because like his voice sounded enough like him,
Right.
but it was just so weird because like even in the book, like it says, like the whole point of that story was that not that David Lee Roth was there, it was that he was talking while he was like cutting lines, and then the mirror fell on him, and he just like barely noticed it and kept talking. Like
Right,
that was
exactly.
what made that story funny.
Yeah, that was done. You know, I actually I don't wish that there were some of the more, you know, disturbing parts of the book because I understand why they weren't in there, you know. But I do that is one of the parts of the book that I wish they had done justice to. I also think I mentioned this in the other podcast. One of the parts of the book that I thought was like genuinely laugh out loud funny, and that actually would have worked really well as like a comedic beat in a stupid, you know, comedy movie, a stoner comedy, basically, which is kind of what this movie was at times, was when Mick Mars tried to kill himself and woke up and thought he was a ghost and tried to walk through the...
Right, I was honestly waiting for that. It was like a couple things that I was like, I know they're going to do this, and that was one of them, and they
Right.
didn't.
Yeah,
But I
that
guess
would have really
that, like-
fit the tone.
Right, yeah, and especially since like there was already no real emotional connection I had with Razzle dying anyway, so
Right.
it's like you might as well insert some slapstick in that part anyway, like because
Yeah.
it's not going to make me feel any more like emotionally involved in this. First of all, they were listening to New Shoes. And that
I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, that's another thing. It took me right out of the movie. And
No, they were like,
it
"Oh,
was-
what was the song in 1985?" I know, I Can't Wait by New Shoes.
It could have been like Kaja Gugu or something though. So I guess yeah, I did think it was and I mean maybe it's just because I had just read the book, but it's like it got to a point where every time you saw Vince talk to somebody that wasn't either like a girl he was fucking or one of the band members or somebody he was about to get in a fight with, it was like that person is going to die in a heartwarming way because it was like
Everyone in the movie either died or got punched.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like Razzle shows up. He's like, "It's me, Razzle. We're gonna be best friends," you know. And it's like, oh, he's fucked. And then his daughter, you know, you see him actually spend time with his daughter, and it's like, well, her days are numbered. Like it was just, I don't know if it was like pacing or if there was something, you know, kind of unsubtle about the way that the movie was written. It's probably a little of both, but it was, yeah, you were definitely like, this person's dead.
Wah, wah.
So anyway, yeah, I don't know, is there anything else that you wanted? I feel like I covered most of the main like beats that I wanted to talk about.
I think I covered everything. My main complaint again is just Diamond Dave was so disappointing. Like
Yeah.
so disappointing.
Right. It's really more than ever we need a David Lee Roth biopic to make up for this one.
Oh my god, please. Well, I guess I did have like it was kind of weird to me how like certain things happen that didn't actually happen, and that's always the case with biopics where they can't make it totally true given the
Right.
time they have. But there was one part where like something like they met their manager at a party and then it like cuts to Mick Mars going like this never happened. I was like, so you're admitting that? Like it was just like weird. It was a weird like break of the fourth wall that wasn't there for most of the movie.
Yeah, the movie had a weird tone, and I could tell, like, I got what they were going for. Like, I get that they were trying to get the band members' voices in the way that they were in the book, and then, you know, the easiest way to do that is by literally having their voices and have them, like, look at the camera and talk to the camera. So it's like I got what they were going for, but it was
like The Office.
It was very inconsistently done because, like, only sometimes are they aware of the camera,
right?
And yeah, it was odd. It was definitely an odd choice. Yeah. So, you know, again, not a good movie. but
I honestly, I tweeted that was cute. I thought it was
right.
cute. It was a cute movie. I wasn't even being like patronizing. I literally thought it was cute. That might not have been what they were going for, but
yeah.
And then the director actually liked that tweet, so
hey.
He agrees. It was cute.
Yeah. Machine Gun Kelly was good. I mean, not that Tommy Lee is the most demanding role, but
he was literally. They're just like, who's Tommy Lee?
Yeah,
get to play Tommy Lee.
You can get like a gangly guy who says "dude" a lot, you know, like, and has tattoos all over his body.
I read that he had to get like all of his full body tattoos covered up, and then put Tommy's tattoos over.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, like it would be weird if it was Tommy Lee, but he had Machine Gun Kelly's tattoos for some reason. Those are the kind of things you don't even think about.
Right. They thought about that. It was probably the whole fucking budget was right. We got to get these tattoos exactly like meticulously correct.
Yeah. I do want to point out that Pete Davidson sucked. And it's
Pete Davidson sucks.
Yeah, he just exactly. This was consistent with the rest of Pete Davidson's life. Existence. his general just his general on and off camera presence. For the last 2 years I've been angry that I have to think about Pete Davidson because he keeps like
even during
locking lips with women that are very famous, and so it's like I know more about Pete Davidson's sex life than anyone else.
Even like during Aretha Franklin's funerals, like I still have to look at fucking Pete Davidson. Why is he there?
Yeah. So this was just another unwanted Pete Davidson sighting. He was playing himself with like a wig, basically like
a wig and a shirt. He wore the shirt the entire time because there was one time that Tom wore that shirt. There are like a collection of pictures where he's wearing that shirt, and so in order to make sure that you know it was Tom Zutaut, they just had him wearing
that was his only shirt.
The like fucking Steve from Blue's Clues shirt for the entire film.
Rather than, casting someone who looks even remotely like Tom Zutaut. Obviously, the solution is to put him in the shirt that
that you want.
Yeah.
And I like that at the end they had the pictures of Nikki with Tom Zutaut in the fucking shirt, and we're supposed to be like, oh, they look exactly like he's wearing the shirt.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And then I was looking at it like that looks like their rhythm guitarist that Mick Mars fired.
Right.
More so Pete Davidson looks like him.
Yeah. So
who was that guy supposed to be? Can we talk about that too for a second? I'm trying not to make this too long, but I just thought about that. Who the fuck was that guy?
Who is that guy that can't play like rhythm guitar? Like they
I've just never played anything like this really basic guitar riff.
Yeah.
That's the point. It's supposed to be different than what anything else has ever sounded like. It's like that sounds like it's just like punk rock. Like
it was very silly. Like everything they did everything in like the most kind of cliched like shorthand way. Like I tweeted this. I'm going to steal my own material from the live tweet. But when Vince Neil is like spiraling, after he leaves the band, they had in the book, they had the perfect way for him to spiral, which was obviously to get ripped and try to ride a motorcycle inside a bar. Like that would have been a showstopper of a scene. And instead they just had him like get scruffy and drink a lot. It was such a wasted opportunity.
I know. And who doesn't want to film a scene where you get to ride a fucking motorcycle into a club and wipe the fuck up?
If I was the guy who played Vince, I would have demanded that. I would have been like, no way. We're not just going to have me sitting at a bar looking sullen. I want to ride a motorcycle into this.
And I was more things that I just realized I'm mad about. Kelsey Grammer, not one appearance.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Rob Lowe, not one motherfucker.
Yeah, what the fuck?
They spent 6 months together.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. That's a half a year. Should have been at least 30 seconds on camera. Like,
right.
Yeah, there's so much about, I mean, the only silver lining is that, like we said, that part of Vince's life could be its own movie.
That's what I was thinking.
And now it still can. Like,
I know, like somebody come to Vince with a fucking movie deal because I want to see that film. Like,
yeah,
even if it's just Chapter 9, Section 9.
Right. Maybe his best friend Nicolas Cage can produce it. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh yeah, we need a movie. Maybe it could be like, you know how the James Brown movie started out with a car chase?
Yeah.
Maybe the Vince Neil movie will start with that scene of Nicolas Cage and him fighting, and it'll star Nicolas Cage, like Nicolas Cage as himself, recreating that scene of them fighting.
Yeah. So I mean, if nothing else, I think the Dirt has opened the door to many better and totally feasible movies about the members of Motley Crue. Yeah, so I don't know when we're definitely not gonna have another podcast next week. This was like I said, a one-time thing. I don't know when we're gonna get back together again. It's but hopefully it'll be less than 6 months. I hope if you haven't checked out the podcast on the book, then do check it out. I think I think it came out pretty good. I think it's probably one of our better ones.
Yeah, I think it's really good.
We keep getting better. It's going to be the 5th next month. April is the 5th year since I started Dystopian Dance Party, and it has taken us about 4 years since we started doing the podcast.
Really, it took off when I got an actual mic.
Yeah, exactly. It's taken us 4 years to get to the point that most people, I would say, get to about 4 episodes in, maybe.
I'm constantly either like my computer's broken or I don't have a microphone or like one of us is sick.
Right. But we're on our own timetable. So, the 5 years to get up to speed, and then the sky's the limit. So, again, because we forgot how to do this, why don't we tell them where to find our stuff?
Oh, we forgot last time.
Yeah.
All right. I'm at Nazpuller, Nazzpuller, and I'm that on both Twitter and Instagram. And I have a website. Wait, I have a website.
Oh yeah. It's really cool. Yeah.
It's Nazpuller. That's NAZZPULLER.com, and all of my art is on there. All my uncensored art is on there. So if you want to see some sliz, you can see it on my website.
And you're listening to the Motley Crue podcast, so you definitely do. You definitely do. Basically, the only social media that I care about is Twitter, and you can find me on there at ZCHOSKINS. And then, obviously, with Dystopian Dance Party, we're on Twitter at Dystopian Tweets. We're on Instagram at Dystopian Graham. We're on Facebook, just Dystopian Dance Party. And then, of course, on YouTube. Honestly, a lot of our listeners are on YouTube, and I always forget to mention YouTube. If you're listening to this on YouTube, which you probably are, then, hit the subscribe button or whatever
Mash
you're
that
supposed to do.
button.
Yep. You can also find us on any of the podcast services, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and you can listen to us while you're jogging, which
anything that takes like 2 fucking hours to do. So if you're
Right.
training for a half marathon, if you're going on a really long commute,
Yeah.
if you're trimming weed,
yeah,
you
can listen to us talking about our chronic depression, and then you won't want to do whatever you're doing anymore. It'll just instantly sap the momentum away. We'll be back. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in 2 weeks in a row. And bye.
bye. I've had an article about Sam Kinison open this whole time because I clicked on it because I always forget his name. But I learned some stuff about him now. He was a Pentecostal preacher, and this is the unsurprising part of it. He developed a crack cocaine habit.